Nathan Rhodes tapped his fingers against the steering wheel of the rental sedan, eyes fixed on the red brick building glowing faintly under a flickering neon sign. Harvest Table. From the outside, the restaurant still carried a trace of the old charm, but to someone like Nathan, the signs of decline were painfully obvious in every small detail. He had launched this dream with nothing but student loans and a simple vision to build a place where both customers and employees felt at home. 15 years later, with 38 locations spread across the country, Nathan should have felt proud. But as he stared at that neglected sign, all he felt was a growing hollowness in his chest. This location had once been envisioned as the flagship of the brand's Midwest expansion, but things had unraveled far too quickly. 62% staff turnover in just 6 months, dropping revenue, regulars disappearing, corporate's investigation team offered only surface-level excuses, equipment failures, gaps in training, growing pains, but Nathan's gut, honed through years of hands-on building, told him something deeper, darker was at play. When the third manager in a row quit without notice, he knew it was time to step in personally. Nathan adjusted the wire-framed glasses he didn't need, part of a carefully crafted disguise, and ran a hand over the unfamiliar beard he'd grown. His new identity had been constructed with meticulous care over weeks. A traveling insurance adjuster from a far-off state with no visible ties to the restaurant chain. Even his own mother wouldn't have recognized him. Stepping out of the car, he drew a deep breath and approached the restaurant. From the outside, Harvest Table still wore the brand's familiar look. Rustic wooden signage, neat landscaping, warm yellow lights glowing through large windows. But under the surface, the neglect showed. Weeds poking through the decorative rocks, smudges on the glass door, and a burnt-out entryway bulb. Inside, a young woman with tired eyes and a forced but friendly smile greeted him. "Welcome to Harvest Table. Just one tonight?" "Yes, just me," Nathan replied in a higher pitch than his usual tone, a voice he had practiced to avoid being recognized. "Somewhere quiet if possible. I've been driving all day." She led him through the dining room. The restaurant was quieter than it should have been for a Thursday night. The music was a bit too loud. Several tables had uncleared glasses, and the signature bread baskets, usually a hallmark of hospitality, were missing from more than a few occupied tables. Seated in a corner booth, Nathan scanned the space like an architect reviewing the foundation of a house he'd built. The staff moved not with confidence, but like they were navigating a minefield. Nervous glances, hushed conversations that died when someone approached, strained smiles that never quite reached their eyes. It wasn't just fatigue, it was fear. Eventually, a woman approached his table. Early 30s, sharp uniform, but the dark circles under her eyes told a different story. "Hi there, I'm Elena. I'll be taking care of you tonight," she said, her smile both genuine and weighed down. "Just water and a glass of your house red, please," Nathan replied, eyes never leaving hers. Elena was exactly the kind of employee Nathan had always valued. Seasoned, dedicated, the kind of person who should have been on a management track long ago. Her expression wasn't that of burnout or disinterest. It was the look of someone who'd been holding the line for too long in a place no longer safe to smile in. She returned with the wine and set a menu before him. "Tonight's special is herb-crusted salmon with roasted vegetables, but honestly," she lowered her voice, "the chicken piccata's the safer bet." Nathan took a sip of the wine, nodded appreciatively. "This is great. I wasn't sure what to expect. This is my first time at a Harvest Table." Elena froze for a moment, then smiled faintly. "Really? They're everywhere now. The founder had a great vision when he started out." Her expression dimmed, like a cloud passing over the sun. Regret, maybe even grief. Nathan could tell she knew something was wrong. "You've been with the company a while, haven't you?" he asked gently, like making casual conversation. 5 years this August," Elena replied, a flicker of pride crossing her face before fatigue took over again. Started at the downtown location, transferred here when this place opened. Sounds like you really cared about the work. Her smile faded a little. She looked around quickly, then leaned in slightly. Back then? Yeah. Those original locations, they were something special. A great place to work. A great place to eat. And now? Nathan asked, already feeling a pit forming in his stomach. Elena straightened. Her expression shuddered. The professional mask was back. Ready to order or need a few more minutes? Nathan masked his disappointment with a small smile. I'll take your recommendation. Chicken piccata sounds perfect. Good choice, she said, scribbling it on her notepad. I'll get that started for you. Over the course of dinner, Nathan worked patiently to build trust. He shared bits and pieces of his fictional life as an insurance adjuster. Stories from the road, diners he'd visited, long drives through small towns, and little by little, Elena opened up. A dry wit surfaced. Her depth of culinary knowledge impressed him. But most telling of all was her quiet leadership, small cues, gentle words, guiding younger staff through a minefield with silent grace. When dessert arrived, a slice of chocolate bourbon cake, the very first recipe Nathan had created in his mother's kitchen, he made his move. You know, he said casually, I'm thinking of switching careers. Tired of always being on the road. This place feels right. Friendly, grounded. Something shifted in Elena's eyes. Not joy. Fear. Like watching someone unknowingly step onto thin ice. She hesitated, the dessert fork poised in her hand, then slowly lowered it. Look, she said quietly. You seem like a good guy, but if you're serious about finding a new job, this isn't the place. Nathan's pulse quickened, but he kept his tone light. I saw the job ad online. Sounded like a great opportunity. Good pay, room for growth. Elena let out a bitter laugh. Not one of amusement, but of someone who'd been sold that dream and watched it crumble. Ellie told us all that too. She looked away, voice now just above a whisper. But the truth is, this place is a trap. You think you'll move up, but you never do. You just get stuck. Her words struck Nathan like a knife. He froze, hand halfway to his water glass. The chill didn't come from the drink. It came from the unmistakable truth in her voice. A truth born from lived experience. This wasn't about training issues or poor management. It was something far worse. A system that was quietly, systematically crushing the very people it was supposed to uplift. Inside the company he had built with his own hands, his own ideals, his own heart. Thank you for being honest, he said softly, his voice tight in his throat. In his mind, everything began to spin. Policies that needed changing, people who needed to be heard, and the mistakes he had unknowingly allowed to grow. I shouldn't have said that, Elena whispered, her anxiety written all over her face. Forget I mentioned it. Enjoy your meal. She walked away quickly, leaving Nathan alone with a dessert that once symbolized happy memories. Now, each bite felt heavy, bitter in his mouth. The sweetness he once remembered had vanished. He had come here simply to investigate a poorly performing branch, but what he uncovered felt like a knife to the heart. The dream he once nurtured, a restaurant chain where everyone felt like they belonged, had twisted into a cage, trapping people like Elena. Nathan Rhodes, founder of Harvest Table, now sat silently among strangers, hidden behind a carefully constructed disguise. And in that moment, one truth burned clear in his mind. His undercover journey had only just begun. The next evening, Nathan returned to the restaurant. Same table, same request to be in Elena's section. He had spent the entire day in his hotel room, poring over policies, operating procedures, trying to piece together how his vision had become so distorted and what needed to be done to bring it back on course. This time, he entered the Harvest Table with a singular goal: uncover the truth. No more passive observation. Every detail was now a potential clue, and what he saw chilled him. The manager, eyes sharp as a hawk, watched employees like prey. Servers flinched when he passed, as if they were operating in a war zone where one wrong move could cost them their job. The tension in the air was thick enough to slice with a knife. "Back so soon?" Elena asked when she saw him, genuine surprise in her voice. "The lemon chicken was too good to resist," Nathan replied with a friendly smile. "And I still haven't found a place to live, so I guess I'm stuck eating out for now." Elena looked slightly relieved, her smile returning. "Well, welcome back. Same meal and wine as last time?" As he waited for his food, Nathan paid closer attention to the little things. The tip jar at the bar was nearly full, but the bartender's face was grim when customers added tips via card. Then the manager appeared, quickly sweeping up the cash from around the restaurant, without a single word of thanks. But the most disturbing detail was the locked box behind the host stand. Several guests generously slipped cash into it, thinking it was for staff tip pooling, but Nathan knew better. No one really seemed to know where that money went. When Elena returned with his food, Nathan leaned in. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said yesterday, about this place being a trap." Her face went pale. Fear flashed in her eyes. "I shouldn't have said that. Please forget it." "I'm actually serious," Nathan said gently, his gaze steady. "I'm still thinking about applying here. I'd really appreciate knowing what I might be walking into." Elena hesitated, then glanced at her watch. "My break's in 15 minutes. If you really want to know, I could use some air." 17 minutes later, Nathan found her sitting behind the restaurant on an old wooden bench, half-eaten sandwich in her hand. "I've only got 10 minutes. Talking to you like this could cost me my job," she said as he sat beside her. "I really appreciate it," Nathan replied quietly. "I just want to understand the truth." Elena let out a deep sigh, like she'd been holding this in for far too long. "This place is built perfectly to squeeze out as much work as possible while paying the absolute minimum," she said, taking a quick bite, eyes still on him. "They cap us at 29 hours, just below the threshold for benefits, but expect us to perform like we're working 35. We're doing twice the work for half the pay." "What about tips?" Nathan asked, recalling the locked box. Elena nodded, a bitter smile flashing briefly. "That's the most clever part of this scam. They pool all tips together, say they'll divide them at the end of the month, but the amount always ends up smaller than expected. Admin fees, breakage compensation, performance adjustments. In the end, we get maybe 20% of what customers actually leave." Nathan felt a wave of nausea. "Why do people stay?" Elena looked at him, eyes as deep as a canyon. "Because not everyone has a choice. We have kids, aging parents, medical debt. They keep us here with promises, quarterly bonuses, management training, but those never come. And after a while, we start thinking it's our fault. That if we just worked harder, smiled more, moved faster, maybe then we'd earn what we were promised." Her voice trembled. "But by the time you realize it's never going to happen, you're too exhausted to start over." Nathan clenched his fists. "That's horrific." Elena turned to him. "You're not like most customers. You said you work in insurance?" Nathan paused, then made a decision. "No, I'm a writer. I travel, collecting stories." A faint flicker lit in Elena's tired eyes. "A writer? With a platform? Maybe you could tell our story," she whispered, almost pleading. "Not just mine, all of ours. People need to know what's really going on behind these forced smiles." Before Nathan could respond, her phone alarm buzzed. Break time was over. Elena stood up, brushing crumbs off her uniform. "Think about it. Someone needs to expose places like this." She hurried back inside, leaving Nathan alone on the bench, his chest tight with guilt and rage. All he'd ever wanted was to build a place where people felt valued, where workers could thrive. And now, the dream he had once nurtured had quietly turned into a prison for people like Elena, the very people he'd once sworn to protect. Quietly, Nathan pulled his phone from his coat pocket. His finger hovered over the app. Then, with a single swipe, He canceled tomorrow's flight home. This wasn't just one broken restaurant anymore. This was a system rotting from within, and Nathan Rodas, who had once poured his whole heart into Harvest Table, had just made a decision. He would uncover every dark corner, no matter how painful the truth might be. 3 days later, his hotel room looked like an FBI field office. Maps marked with the locations of 15 restaurants in the region covered one wall. Photos, receipts, documents, and red string connected pins across a complex web of questions and clues. Over the past 72 hours, Nathan had quietly visited 4 other locations, each time under a different identity. And each time, the same sickening patterns appeared: burnt-out staff, disappearing tips, fear-based management, and a heavy air of silent resignation. His phone buzzed, a message from Marlene Jenkins, his longtime executive assistant, and the only person who knew what he was doing. Secure line, urgent. 2 minutes later, Marlene's familiar voice filled the room. "You found something?" Nathan asked, pen poised above his notebook. "You were right," Marlene said quickly, her voice lowering. "I reviewed all the financial reports from the regional office, but through back channels, not the official system. There's a shadow system in place." Nathan's pen nearly tore through the paper. "Explain." Rick Sanders, the regional manager overseeing all 15 branches, has been running 2 sets of books, one set submitted to corporate and another that reflects the actual flow of money. "No way," Nathan muttered, his face tightening. "There's no way he's doing this alone." "He's not," Marlene confirmed. "He's working with Paylex, the third-party payroll company handling this region." "Paylex?" Nathan frowned. "They're not on our approved vendor list. They were added during the expansion last year," Marlene continued. "The entire proposal went through Rick's office and got fast-tracked. On paper, everything looked perfect: competitive rates, glowing references. But I dug deeper. Paylex was founded just 3 weeks before submitting the proposal. All their references are shell companies." Nathan's blood ran cold. "How much have they taken?" His voice was low, almost dangerous. "Just from tip skimming and hour manipulation. Around $6 million over the last 18 months, and that's a conservative estimate." "6 million, Nathan whispered, not in shock, but in disgust. "Brazen theft from the very people I tried to protect. Most of the money's routed to offshore accounts. I'm still tracing the paths, but Rick, he just bought a vacation home in Aspen, a new yacht, and his wife's wearing jewelry worth more than her entire previous salary." Nathan jumped up, pacing the small room, his breath quickened, eyes sharp with fury. "What about the internal complaint system? Why didn't we catch this earlier?" Marlene paused for a long moment before answering, her voice grim. "That's the worst part. Remember the direct feedback line for employees? Every complaint was marked as resolved, but none were ever reviewed. Someone at corporate is covering for Rick." Nathan froze mid-step. "Who?" "I haven't pinned it down yet. I need more time. This isn't about one bad manager anymore," Nathan said, his voice cracking. "This is a network. I've found similar red flags in 2 other regions. Different payroll companies. Same tactics." Nathan collapsed into the chair, his whole body heavy with the weight of what he now knew. What he once believed was a minor issue had metastasized across the company he built. And the most painful part? He never saw it coming. "I've reached out to Sophia Chen," Marlene added, "our internal auditor. She was the one who flagged payroll discrepancies last year. Her reports were buried, but I trust her. She's not involved." Nathan closed his eyes and pressed his fingers to his temples. He could hear echoes of his past, those early days laying each brick of what he'd hoped would become a company rooted in fairness and purpose. And now he stood among the rubble, facing a choice: walk away or fight to reclaim its soul. "Set up a secure line. I need to speak with her immediately." After the call, Nathan returned to Harvest Table. Not out of habit this time, but as part of a plan. When Alina saw him, her face lit up like a flicker of warmth in a winter night. "The writer returns," she said, her smile this time genuinely warm. "The story's bigger than I thought," Nathan replied, finally being completely honest. Elena, if there were proof that something illegal is happening here, would you be willing to speak up? Her smile disappeared. A flash of caution lit her eyes. That's dangerous talk. But what if you weren't alone? What if others stood with you? Elena glanced around the restaurant. Her gaze settled on a young server struggling with a heavy tray, a dishwasher with bandaged hands, and an elderly hostess who should have retired long ago. For them, maybe, she whispered. But the problem is proof. Everything's designed so nothing can be traced. What if someone helped you gather that proof? Nathan asked, gently, but with purpose. His eyes no longer held the wandering gaze of a stranger. They burned with resolve. Elena froze, her stare shifting to suspicion. Who are you, really? Before Nathan could answer, a sudden commotion erupted from the kitchen. Rick Sanders, the regional manager Nathan had only seen in photos, had arrived. His presence struck the room like a silent alarm. The entire staff shifted into overdrive, moving frantically, like trying to escape an incoming storm. Rick's eyes scanned the restaurant like a predator sizing up prey. When his gaze fell on Nathan and Elena talking too long, his face darkened. "That's him," Elena whispered, immediately turning away. "The man behind the trap." Nathan watched as Rick signaled to the floor manager, whispering instructions while subtly gesturing toward their table. "I have to go," Elena said urgently. "And you shouldn't come back. It's not safe." She hurried off, leaving Nathan alone, finally face to face with the man who had turned his dream into a weapon. What began as a simple investigation had now revealed itself for what it truly was, a coordinated system of exploitation, spreading like rot through his company. And Nathan knew with certainty, firing one man wouldn't fix this. He would have to tear down and rebuild the very structure that allowed this corruption to flourish. "Mr. Miller, isn't it?" A voice cut through his thoughts. The floor manager stood at his table, a polite expression on his face, but cold as ice. "We've been informed that you've been asking our staff some unusual questions." Nathan offered a calm smile, staying in character. "Just making conversation. Elena, my server, has been fantastic." "Yes, well, we pride ourselves on excellent service," the manager replied, his smile never reaching his eyes. "But we also encourage our employees to stay focused. Lengthy personal chats can be distracting." The warning was thinly veiled, coated in corporate sugar. "Of course," Nathan nodded. "I wouldn't want to cause any trouble." "Very well. Enjoy your meal," the manager said. Nathan continued eating at a leisurely pace, intentionally slow, as if he were simply enjoying a relaxing dinner. Before leaving, he placed a generous cash tip inside the bill folder, a gesture of appreciation, though he knew Elena would never see a dime of it. But he didn't drive off immediately. Instead, he circled around to a dark corner of the parking lot, just beyond the reach of the lights, and waited. 2 hours later, the restaurant closed. Employees filtered out, one by one, their faces heavy with exhaustion. Elena was among the last. Her shoulders drooped with fatigue. As she walked past his car, Nathan flashed the headlights once. She stopped, then cautiously approached the window. "You shouldn't be here," she said, eyes scanning her surroundings. "I know. Get in. Just 5 minutes." Elena slid into the passenger seat. There was no more need for pretense. Nathan looked her straight in the eye. "Did they question you?" "For over 30 minutes. All about you. Who are you really?" "Not a writer anymore," Nathan said simply. "I'm gathering evidence. Elena, I believe you and your co-workers are victims of systemic wage theft, and I want to help." Elena held her breath. "Are you with the labor board?" "No. But I have resources and influence." He handed her a burner phone. "I need documentation. Photos of tip records compared to payouts, screenshots of schedules showing manipulated hours, copies of promised bonuses that were never delivered." Elena took the phone, her expression troubled. "If someone gets caught doing this, they'll be fired on the spot. Be careful, be methodical, and you won't be alone." Nathan handed her a sealed envelope. "Inside is a list of trusted employees verified by our internal auditor. They're at other branches and they're already helping. Why? She asked quietly. Because you were the only one brave enough to warn a stranger. And because you have something most don't. Courage. Over the next 2 weeks, Nathan launched a silent resistance. Still in disguise, he continued visiting other branches while coordinating with Marlene and auditor Sophia Chen to compile and verify every shred of evidence. The burner phones became a network of whispered truth. Every altered schedule, every vanished bonus, every misallocated tip was logged and photographed. Elena proved to be a critical node in the operation, quickly recruiting 5 others at her location. Together, they gathered proof, page by page, line by line. Similar cells formed in 12 other restaurants. The evidence poured in: time card manipulations, tampered tip records, unattainable bonus structures. Meanwhile, Nathan, still operating behind the scenes in his role as CEO, quietly blocked Rick's fund transfer requests, launched surprise corporate audits, and restricted his access to financial systems. He's getting nervous, Sophia reported in a midnight call. Rick sent 3 urgent emails today about payment system errors. Nathan stared at the wall of his hotel room, at the map lit with pins and strings, each one a new truth unearthed. The fire had been lit. Now he had to ensure it consumed the rotten structure that had taken root in his name. We discovered he's trying to access funds, but isn't seeing the numbers he expects, Sophia said over the secure line. Good, Nathan replied. Keep up the pressure, but make every obstacle look like a system glitch or routine compliance check. He mustn't suspect sabotage. The employee documentation is overwhelming, Marlene chimed in. The fraud's approaching 8 million now, and we've identified 2 accomplices at headquarters. What about Elena? Nathan asked, his tone suddenly heavier. Is she safe? So far, yes, Marlene answered, hesitant. But Rick's getting suspicious. He's installed surveillance cameras in the break rooms and started random bag checks. The next day, Nathan returned to the original harvest table location. He requested to be seated in Elena's section again. She appeared thinner, more worn, but there was something new in her eyes, a quiet fire. You coming back is risky, she whispered while setting down his appetizer. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. Rick's getting desperate, Nathan replied. Elena nodded subtly. He's called 3 all-staff meetings this week, lectured about loyalty, warned us about outside agitators. Yesterday, Jessie from the bar got fired just for checking her phone during a shift. We're almost there, Nathan assured her. Just a few more days. There's a rumor corporate's visiting next Tuesday, she whispered. Rick's panicking. Made us scrub every crack in the kitchen and memorize fake talking points about how happy we are. Nathan gave a slow nod. His expression hardened. Then Tuesday's the day. As he paid his bill, he slipped a small note into the checkbook. Be ready Tuesday, the trap is about to spring on them. That night, in the quiet of his hotel room, Nathan stood in front of the mirror. He picked up the scissors and shaved off the beard that had concealed him throughout this mission. His eyes, now unobscured, reflected the unwavering resolve of a leader reclaiming his legacy. The wire-framed glasses were replaced with contact lenses. A crisp, tailored suit hung ready on the chair beside him. For the first time in nearly a month, he no longer looked like a stranger. He was Nathan Rodas, CEO of Harvest Table. It's time to take back my company, he said to his reflection, and free my people. His phone buzzed. A message from Sophia. Warning. Rick's asking questions about Elena. Her computer access has been revoked. Possible termination tomorrow. Nathan froze. The plan had just lost its buffer. Rick was moving to silence the one person who had unknowingly lit the fuse with 7 words. This place is a trap. The next morning, Elena walked into the restaurant with a lead weight in her chest. She could feel the eyes on her. The hostess leaned in and whispered, Rick's here early. He's looking for you. Thanks, Elena whispered back, her hand instinctively tightening around the burner phone in her pocket. She had already backed everything up to the cloud as instructed, but still carried the device. afraid someone might search her apartment. She barely made it to the employee locker room when the floor manager stepped in front of her. "Rick wants to see you, now, in the office." In the office, Rick sat behind the manager's desk, like a judge presiding over a courtroom. A folder lay open in front of him, the cold fluorescent light reflecting off his expensive watch. Without smiling, he gestured to the chair across from him. "Elena." "5 years with the company," he began, his tone calm, but his eyes were icy. "Started at the downtown location, then requested a transfer here. Always dependable, until recently." "I don't understand what you mean," Elena replied, doing her best to stay composed. Rick slid a printed document across the desk toward her. "System access logs. You've been logging into payroll files after hours, digging into old tip data." A thin, blade-like smile crept across his lips. "We monitor everything, Elena." Her throat went dry. "I was just trying to understand how the bonuses are calculated, and I took pictures of schedules, pay stubs from coworkers to..." Rick's smile vanished. "We know someone's been feeding information to outside sources. Corporate is extremely concerned about the possibility of corporate espionage. I don't know anything about..." "Your termination paperwork is already complete," Rick interrupted coldly. "Security will escort you out. And I should remind you, your confidentiality agreement includes severe penalties if you disclose any company data." A knock at the door shattered the heavy silence. The hostess peeked in, pale-faced. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's a situation. Corporate just arrived. They're requesting an immediate all-staff meeting." Rick raised an eyebrow, his expression twisting. "That meeting was scheduled for next week. They say it's urgent. Everyone's already gathering in the main dining room." Rick shot to his feet, his composure slipping as panic surfaced. And in that dining room, the staff, those who had remained silent out of fear, were now gathered, waiting for the truth to finally come to light. Elena gripped the burner phone in her pocket, a flicker of hope igniting in her chest. At last, the moment had arrived. "We'll finish this later," Nathan whispered to her. "Stay here." As soon as he stepped out, Elena pulled out the burner phone. A new message had appeared. "During the meeting, front row, trust me." The main dining room had been hastily rearranged, tables pushed aside, chairs lined up in neat rows. Staff sat nervously, whispering among themselves. At the front stood 3 sharply dressed individuals, 2 women and a man, speaking quietly with their backs to the room. Elena quietly slipped into the front row, heart pounding. Rick was there too, standing not far off, trying to maintain a calm demeanor as he approached the group from corporate. "Rick Sanders," he said smoothly, extending a hand toward the man who still had his back turned. "We weren't expecting you until next week, but of course, we're honored to have you here." The man turned around. Rick went pale. Nathan Rodas, the founder of Harvest Table, gave him a cold smile, his eyes piercing straight through Rick's facade. "Surprise inspection," Nathan declared, loud enough for all to hear, or, perhaps more accurately, a reckoning. Gasps and murmurs spread through the room. Elena froze in place, her eyes wide as she recognized the familiar face, now clean-shaven, no glasses, of the stranger she had once worn, paraded. "Mr. Miller," she whispered. Nathan met her gaze briefly, a look of deep gratitude passing between them, before turning back to face Rick. "For those who don't know me," he began, his voice calm but commanding, "I'm Nathan Rodas. 15 years ago, I founded this company with a simple dream: to build a place where both guests and employees would be treated like family." He stepped forward, owning the space with no need for a microphone, only the conviction in his chest. 3 weeks ago, I heard something that shook me. A trusted employee told a guest this place was a trap. So I decided to see for myself. He nodded to Marlene and Sophia, who opened their laptops, linking them to the large screen at the back of the room. What I found wasn't theft of silverware, food, or cash registers. It was something far more insidious. Theft of dignity. Theft of fair wages. Theft of respect. The screen lit up with spreadsheets, pay stubs, schedules, and graphs showing the fraud in staggering detail. Many staff members gasped as they recognized their own distorted data. $8.3 million, Nathan said, clearly and firmly. That's how much has been stolen from employees in this region, through shaved hours, misappropriated tips, and phantom bonuses that never existed. Rick suddenly bolted toward the door. 2 security guards, real ones, not his hired goons, blocked his escape. The police are already executing warrants for financial crimes, Nathan continued without looking back. And I, as the founder, have authorized full repayment of all stolen wages, with interest, to every affected employee. The room erupted. Some clapped, others sat in stunned silence. Elena, unmoving, felt tears spill down her cheeks. Nathan raised his hand. The room fell silent. This end today. Not just the fraud, but the entire culture of fear that allowed it to happen. He walked to Elena's chair and extended a hand. This woman, and dozens like her across our branches, risked their livelihoods to tell the truth, while I, the founder, failed to protect them. They showed the courage I should have demonstrated long ago. Elena hesitated, then slowly took his hand and stood beside the man who had once been a mystery. Starting today, Nathan announced, Elena will lead our new employee advocacy division, reporting directly to me. No complaint will ever be buried again, no voice silenced. The trap is broken. As Rick was led away in handcuffs, eyes burning with hatred, Nathan turned to Elena, his voice softening. I'm sorry I deceived you, but your honesty and your courage, when you thought I was just a stranger, saved this company's soul. Still stunned, Elena could only manage to ask, why did you choose to listen to me? Nathan replied, his voice carrying like a vow through the room. Because a true leader never forgets. Without their people, they are nothing. 6 months later, Elena stood in the center of a completely transformed harvest table. Now a space filled with warmth and life. Soft golden light filled the room. The seating had been upgraded for comfort, not just for customers but also for employees on break. The kitchen was modern and fully updated. But the biggest transformation was the one you couldn't see, the restoration of trust. New paychecks are in, Jesse, the bartender who had once been fired, cheered, waving a stack of envelopes. And the transparency report is live through QR. The team gathered, no longer with wary eyes but with smiles full of hope. Each envelope didn't just contain a paycheck, it was a symbol of validation. A detailed breakdown of hours worked, tips received, and a scannable code linking to the restaurant's public transparency dashboard. Still can't believe we get health insurance at just 20 hours a week, Miguel from the upstairs kitchen said, eyes misty as he looked at the printout. My daughter needs asthma meds every month. Elena nodded, thinking of the national policies Nathan had rolled out. Lower hour requirements for benefits, tip transparency, monthly open forums where any employee could speak freely, and most importantly, a profit-sharing program that gave every worker a stake in success. Pinned to Elena's chest was a new name tag, Regional Director Employee Advocacy. A title that once would have made her panic now filled her with strength as she stood surrounded by her team. By the dream they had saved. Elena had never imagined finding herself in her work, not for the paycheck but for the purpose, to rebuild something good from the wreckage. She'd discovered a gift for creating fair systems and a passion for justice and elevating the voices of workers, a calling she once believed only belonged to people at the top. Her phone buzzed softly, a text from Nathan. Still good for 7 p.m.? Since the company's reform, Nathan had made it a point to regularly visit every location, not as an imposing CEO, but as a partner. Sometimes he washed dishes, sometimes he waited tables, sometimes he cooked on the line. Every visit reconnected him to the original vision, that a restaurant isn't just about profits, it's about planting seeds of trust and kindness. The investigation had ultimately uncovered fraud in 23 of the 38 harvest table branches. 11 managers and 3 corporate executives faced criminal charges. Over $20 million in stolen wages were repaid, including emotional damages for years of silent suffering. Liana, a familiar voice called from the entrance. Sophia Chen, the internal auditor, now one of Elena's closest allies, rushed in, tablet in hand. National report just dropped. You'll want to see this. Elena glanced at the screen and caught her breath. For the first time since the scandal broke, company-wide revenue wasn't just steady, it had grown 12%. Employee turnover had fallen from 62% to just 8% per quarter. Customer satisfaction scores had reached record highs. We did it? Elena whispered in disbelief. No, Sophia smiled. We proved what some of us have always believed, that doing the right thing isn't just moral. It's smart business. That evening, the restaurant hosted a special event, exclusively for employees and their families. Children ran laughing between tables adorned with fresh flowers. Parents, once too drained to attend a school play or birthday, now shared stories of rebuilding their lives. Nathan arrived quietly, no spotlight, dressed in jeans and a plain white t-shirt, his young daughter riding on his shoulders. He greeted every staff member by name, remembered their kids, their favorite dishes, even an upcoming birthday for one of the line cooks. As dinner wound down, he tapped his glass for attention. I won't keep you long, he began warmly, but there's something I want to say. 6 months ago, this company lost its way. We forgot that a restaurant isn't a building or a spreadsheet. A restaurant is people. He swept his hand across the room. The true measure of success isn't profit, though that's coming back stronger than ever. It's this. Families together, dignity restored, trust rebuilt. He raised his glass. To all of you who had the courage to stay and fight for something better, and especially to Elena, who taught a CEO what leadership really means. As the evening came to a close and guests began to leave, Nathan found Elena sitting alone in the same familiar booth where it had all started with 7 simple words. This place is a trap. He sat across from her, eyes gentle. Penny for your thoughts, he asked. Elena looked around the room, no longer a cage of despair. It had become fertile ground for something new. I was just remembering how trapped I felt that day, she said quietly, and wondering how many others out there still feel that way. How many restaurants are still silent traps? Nathan nodded, his expression solemn. That's why next month we're launching the Harvest Table Foundation, an organization dedicated to pushing for industry-wide reform. And guess who's leading it? Elena's eyes widened. Me? If you want it. No pressure. But Elena, you have a rare gift. You see the systems others overlook. And more importantly, you have the courage to challenge them. He turned to look around the restaurant once more. The place that had once been a nightmare now stood as a symbol of redemption and rebirth. Employee artwork hung proudly on the walls. The mission statement, rewritten by the team, emphasized community and mutual respect. The old tip jar had been replaced by a transparent digital system showing real-time distribution. From trap to launchpad, Elena said softly. Nathan smiled. And you're the engine driving it. She looked at him, eyes full of fire. Yes, I'll do it. From a quiet corner of the restaurant, Nathan watched in silence. No more fear. No more shame. Just light, purpose, and a dream. Finally realized. The journey had been painful. The cost had been high, but as he watched Elena sketching the foundation's first plans, Nathan knew some traps once broken become the strongest foundations for freedom.